everyone, it's Carly Hall, and in this video, we are going to make a super easy one layer single color t-shirt. So I am using heat transfer material, or as Cricut calls it, iron-on, which is also the same as HTV. So all three of those things are the same thing. It is a vinyl that you can apply using heat. So we are going to cut our design using our Cricut Maker, but you can use any cutting machine. And then I am going to apply it using my EasyPress, but you can also use an iron or a heat press. Your settings might just look a little bit different. So I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know about making a single layer iron-on design. So let's get started. Here's a look at everything we'll need for this project, starting with our t-shirt. So I just have a Cat and Jack shirt from Target, and I just like to know what material I'm using so that I know the correct settings. So this is a 60% cotton, 40% poly shirt. So that will come in handy for when we're creating our settings. And then I have a heat resistant mat. So this is the EasyPress mat by Cricut, and I'll use this as a pressing surface when I apply. So if you're not using an EasyPress, you don't need this. You will need an ironing board if you're using an iron or a hard surface. And then if you're using heat press, just your heat press. I have a measuring tape so we know how big to make our design. This is the iron-on I will be using. It's Strong Bond by Cricut, and it's a Natalie Malin patterned iron-on. So it has a cute little pattern. I'm not sure which one I'll use yet, leaning towards this one. So we'll be using this iron-on, and I will link it in the description below. And then you'll need a weeding tool to weed your design, scissors to trim down your design, and of course a cutting machine to cut. So I'm using a standard grip mat. A light grip mat will work too, but I like standard grip, the green one, for this purpose. And then again, as I mentioned, we will be using the EasyPress to apply it. All right, so let's head over to Design Space to see the design I'm using. In Design Space, I have already chosen my design. It's this adorable Be Kind heart, and I've resized it to fit the specific shirt that I purchased. So I chose the dimensions 5 inches wide by 5 inches tall. And then once you've resized it and chosen your measurements, then you'll click Make It. This is the mat preview screen, and on this screen, depending on if you're using a device or a computer, this will look a little bit different, but you'll want to make sure to turn on the mirror icon. That will flip your image so that it's mirrored horizontally, so that when you cut it, it'll be the right way when you apply it. So this will make sense a little bit later on, but make sure that you toggle on the mirror icon there. Then click Continue. Connect to your machine either using Bluetooth or your USB cable, and then we'll browse all materials by choosing Browse All Materials here. And we're going to search for pattern, and then we'll choose patterned iron-on. If you're using a different type of iron-on, you'll just want to make sure to search for the specific type you're using. If it's not a Cricut brand, I would recommend doing a small test cut since iron-on is pretty expensive. So you can just add a circle to your mat or a small square and then do a test cut so you don't waste an entire sheet if it doesn't cut properly. Once you've chosen your selection, click Done. And you will get a little message from Cricut that says, make sure mirror is turned on and iron-on material is faced shiny side down on the mat. So I'll show you what that means, but that is a good reminder, this little warning that pops up. So if you didn't already turn on your mirror, you can come over here to edit and then just toggle that mirror selection on again. So make sure that is turned on and you're good to go. So I've chosen to use this iron-on here. It's a really pretty green and blue watercolor pattern by Natalie Malin. And so you will put your liner side down on the mat, or the shiny side. So there's a shiny side and then a dull adhesive side. So I am going to roll this up kind of tight so that it doesn't all stick on my mat. And then starting at the corner, I'm just going to tack on corner to my mat and then smooth it out like this. When I'm cutting iron-on or any material that goes longer than my mat, I just leave it all the way off the mat so that I can just trim it after, and then I won't waste any material. After it's loaded on the mat, you're going to put it underneath your guides on your machine, And while still holding your mat up against the rollers, you'll click the flashing load button. Once it's loaded in, Cricut will let you know that it's ready to cut, and the flashing C button will light up. So go ahead and click that once it's ready. Once it's done cutting, you'll click the unload button on your machine. And now we'll unload it and then we'll weed it off of the mat. It's very hard to see, but there's faint little cut lines on the iron-on. So we're gonna unload the mat, and I like to flip my mat over and then push my iron-on down onto my surface and pull my mat away like that. We cut our material in the upper left-hand side, and it is very difficult to see. So I'm gonna see if I can grab a bright pad to show you where the cut lines are. So here's my bright pad. And again, I'm not really sure if you can see that, but I can see it a ton better. I can now see where my heart is. And that's important so that I don't accidentally trim off the point of the heart or any of my design. So I'm just gonna trim down my material so that I can weed it. Now I'm gonna weed the outside of the design away so that you can start to see how the Cricut cut this material. So I apologize for the lighting, but I want you to see how much the bright pad helps in terms of trying to weed out my design. Weeding is the process of peeling away all the parts that you don't want in your design and then just leaving the parts that you do want, and that's your actual image that you're gonna apply. So when it comes out of the Cricut, it's not completely ready to go. You do have to weed it so that you don't get any of the excess pieces on your project. And another little pro tip, I usually have a piece of tape or something that I can stick my little scraps to so those scraps don't accidentally end up on my final project. And again, the bright pad, it has 5 different brightnesses. So if this is super bright, you can turn it down. And I like to have mine at the max brightness so I can really see those cut lines. So I'm not accidentally pulling something out that I shouldn't. And then I just get all of the pieces, and you can flip it over and see what it looks like. I also like to consult my image on my computer to make sure that I'm not missing any spots. Now that we're done with our bright pad, you can see my design. It says "Be kind." And then I've weeded out all of the areas that I don't want to apply to my shirt, and now we will apply it to my shirt. Now that our design is all weeded, we are ready to apply it to our shirt using some heat. Now, when I first started crafting, I didn't know that there were so many factors that affected what your temperature settings and time settings were on the device that you're using to apply the heat to. So a couple of things to consider. Your time and temperature settings will largely depend on the type of device you're using. So I'm using a Cricut EasyPress. The heat settings for a heat press are very similar, maybe a little bit shorter time, but we can find the heat settings on cricut.com/heat guide. So I'll show you where to go for that. The next thing that helps determine your settings is the type of material you're using. So we're using a patterned iron-on, which the settings will be different if you're using just a regular iron-on, for example. And then the actual fabric or surface you're applying to also makes a difference. So I used to just set my heat press to 310 degrees for 30 seconds and just would do that for everything. And then I burnt a couple of my projects and I didn't understand why. So those are the different factors that will help you determine your settings. And for us, we are going to go to cricut.com/heat guide to set up our EasyPress. This is Cricut's heat guide, and it's a great resource to figure out what type of settings you need for your project. So I'm using the Cricut EasyPress 2. There are other colors of the Cricut EasyPress 2, so if you're trying to figure out which one you have, there is a help article that you can click on right here. And then I'm using patterned iron-on, so I'm going to scroll down and choose patterned iron-on. And then my base material, it was a cotton poly blend, and I do have a Cricut EasyPress mat, so I'm going to click apply. And here are my settings. So I'm going to preheat my shirt for 5 seconds. Then I'm going to apply it for 30 seconds and flip it over and do the back for 5 seconds. And it does recommend a cold peel. So let's do that and apply our design. To set our EasyPress, I'm going to click the thermometer icon and then toggle up to 340. If you hold down the plus sign, it'll jump in higher increments, so 340. And then I'm going to leave the timer at 30 seconds. And then when I preheat, you can either just start the timer and let it go to 5 seconds, or let it go to 25 rather, just so it does 5 seconds. Or you can set the timer each time by clicking the timer and then adjusting the time with the plus and minus. So we'll let that heat up and then we'll transfer our design. I do have my EasyPress mat right under my shirt. You can also put it inside your shirt if you prefer that. You really just want to make sure that you're avoiding any of the seams when you're pressing so that you have direct contact with your t-shirt. You don't need any type of protection, so I'm just going to put this on here. And like I said, you can start it and let it count down to 25. And I like to just put one hand on my machine. So now we have just preheated our shirt, and it doesn't need to be hot when you apply your design. It's really just smoothing out any of the wrinkles and making sure that there's no moisture in your shirt. And then we're gonna put our design right on top. And I am a finger measurer. So for kids' shirts, I like to go 2 fingers from the neckline, sometimes 1 depending on how small the kid's shirt is. And then I just like to center it from the sleeves. So use your judgment. It feels really close to the neckline, but it doesn't feel that way when you put it on. It hits you in a really nice place. So for adult shirts, I like to go 3 fingers from the neckline. So that's why I do a little bit less for my kids. So let's do like 1.5 fingers from the neckline here. And then we'll do right in the center for the shirt. So once you have it positioned, you can use heat-resistant tape to tape it down if you'd like, or you can just place your EasyPress right over the top. And again, you want to make sure you're not on the seams so that your heat plate is right on contact with your shirt. And then you'll click the go. And then again, just one hand on the press so that you have even pressure. You don't need that much pressure with your EasyPress because we are going to flip it over and do both sides. And it's such even, consistent heating that it's really great for the amount of pressure and space that this little machine takes up. You can get a really professional transfer. I also have a heat press, and I love my heat press, but it takes so long to heat up that I usually find myself using my EasyPress. So then we'll flip it over. We're going to do the back side just for 15 seconds. After you're done, your design will still be kind of hot, so make sure you don't dive in or have a child touch it because it will be a little hot. And it's a cold peel, so to cool off your shirt, I like to stick it on a cold surface like your tabletop, and it really sucks out the heat. So you can just flip it over and it absorbs the heat into your surface, takes it out of your shirt. So now it's already cooling down and it's almost ready to be peeled. So you'll want to make sure that it's cold to the touch depending on the instructions, and then once it's completely cool, you'll peel it off. So now that it's cool, we're just going to peel at a 45-degree angle, just like this. And you'll see that there's nothing left on the liner, and our design is on our shirt. So super easy, and this will hold up in the wash. I do turn mine inside out just so that the adhesive doesn't melt, and I wash all of my clothes on cold or warm, nothing hot, so that it doesn't peel off, and I just tumble them inside out. So this will hold up in the wash really well, and I love the watercolor pattern. Here is our final shirt. I love Natalie Malin's patterned iron-on. It transferred so easily, and I also love all of the Be Kind images in Cricut's design space. I think it's so cute that kids are wearing shirts that say being kind is better than being cool and other sentiments like that. So if you haven't seen those images, again, I will link everything in the description below, all of the materials and the image that I used today. So check those out. And if you have any questions about anything in this video, you can either leave a comment or check out my other social media channels and join us in the Cricut Crafts Facebook group. We are always in there answering questions. There's so many people willing to help, so I'd love to have you there. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like it and subscribe to my channel if you're interested in seeing more crafting tutorials. All right, thanks so much for joining me, and I will see you in the next video.